Welcome to MBC News Debate on the open space. We have here the potential for what could be a lively discussion, no doubt. Intlibber BNT and Nexeus Fatale and Dietrich Finesmith and myself, Dousa Dragonash. Now, I'm going to turn to Intlibber first. Intlibber, what do you think of this price hike, first of all?
Well, I gotta say I was shocked when it came out, but it's really unfortunate. I think their reasons for it are really rather baseless and rather extreme price hikes that really most people in today's economy really can't handle. And I think that the lab is realizing this, and that with the protests going on, that there may be some compromises in the offing.
And Nexeus, you have a slightly different view. You've taken a slightly different view, I've noticed, from possibly 3,000 other people that I have read so far, actually.
Yeah, I'm definitely not making any friends on this issue. I didn't, like many people, I didn't see the price hike coming, but it's not something that I particularly object to. I understand the reasoning behind it, but I feel that there are other things that it may or may not help, and there's larger issues that the price hike really talks to, more so than just the fact that they're hiking it up a certain amount.
Okay. Well, let's take it from there. What do you think those issues are?
Well, I have a few friends who do who rent land, who own full sims and own regular sims, not open space sims, and they have been in a very precarious position because of what open sims have done, because of their price margin, and because you can rent them for cheaper. A lot of people have been able to rent those land prices for less. So people who are renting regular sims are having to change their business model, having to change the way that they have set up the established business model, and then and having to deal with just other price increases from the tier 5 price increases. And now, as things are shifting, and as OpenSim got cheaper and brought more resources, I feel it also depleted the value of mainland sims. So you have a lot of people leaving mainland. You have renters who are using these meant for low prim use or low use areas at cheaper prices, and has developed a really interesting void, not only on just the mainland, but for people who have been stuck and have to change their models. And now we have these really low, not value, but low performing sims that they're renting as regular sims or wherever they may have you. And mainland is suffering because it doesn't have the same sort of privacy, security, and land features that you get on an open sim.
Well, coming to Intlibber, you're a large landowner, I think it's fair to say, aren't you, Intlibber? I mean, do you concur with what Nexeus has just said?
Well, I'm not at the scale of Anshe Chong, but yes, BNT is a significant size estate company. I have to disagree on a number of points. While BNT is mostly full sims, since the open space prim limit was increased in March from 1875 to 3750 prims, it's essentially been, before that, an open space was really a luxury because essentially each prim in the sim cost twice as much as a prim in a full sim. All right, at least at the estate level. Okay, it was actually only slightly less than what prims cost on the mainland, because mainlanders enjoy lower tier that's subsidized by private estate owners who pay $295 a month tier for a sim rather than $195 a month. And so when they increased the prim limits, if they were going to increase the prim limits, they should have known what the impact was going to be. The fact is that they made the prims in those open sims at the same price as prims in full private estate sims. It made them still they were more valuable than mainland. The main problem with mainland is that you don't have, essentially Linden Lab is the estate owner. And because of that, we private estate owners pay higher tiers, and our higher tiers subsidize the customer service that Linden Lab provides to their mainland sim owners and so forth. That they get support for less cost than we do. We subsidize what people pay on the mainland, and they get a better access to newbies coming into SL. They get better access to things like the showcase on SecondLife.com, and they get a lot of advantages beyond that. And frankly, the fact is that the open space increase of prim limits did a lot to help equalize things a bit. And while we didn't start off with a lot of open spaces, we've been slowly converting some of our full sims to open spaces. So right now we have about 17 open spaces at the moment. And we're not going to be hurt very badly by that. We've discussed this with a number of our residents, and some are perfectly fine with paying the higher tier, some are not, and some we're going to be basically converting 4 open spaces back to a full sim and converting those people into quarter sim customers. So while it's if people do things in an organized manner, it's not going to be a big deal, but it's definitely a problem if the lab is going to charge us $100 to convert open spaces back to full sims when it's something that they're essentially forcing on us by their violation of our contract. When you enter into a contract, you don't get to change the terms of the contract after you enter into it. And the biggest offense with this policy is the elimination of grandfathering. Now, personally, most of my sims aren't grandfathered. Okay, I pay $295 on most of my full sims. Some of them I don't. There's a few that I don't, and I enjoy a small break on those. And there are a lot of people I compete against who are mostly grandfathered sims. For example, Surreal Estates, they are almost entirely grandfathered sims. So I do have a competitive disadvantage with people like that, and I also have a competitive disadvantage against mainland landowners who enjoy much lower tier than we do. So we have to compete against that. And
well, that was a choice, wasn't it? And presumably you could have bought on the mainland, couldn't you?
Well, we could have, but at the time that we basically built our estate, we mainland sims were being auctioned off for $3,500 US a pop, and it was a very bad investment at that point because they were overpriced and you could barely rent them out for their prim value, and Linden Labs have been doing a lot to undermine the private estate owners since then, and now we can barely sell our land for $1 linden a square meter, and this is just a bigger hit against estate owners that compete against the lab.
I mean, I'm not completely sure I agree with you on some of the stuff that you stated, particularly when it comes to showcase. I feel that I feel like you get in the showcase regardless of the type of sim you have. I think it's more about the location. But with that said, I'm not, as you said, grandfathering poses a really interesting issue into the mix, but it's with open space sims, it's a very unique. There's a very unique set of circumstances, right? Because these were areas that were initially made for this low prim use that was kind of read over and over from day one, and I really think what happened is when you had the lower prim limits, people said, okay, well, I really can't use this market-wise. It wasn't viable to the market. There was no real ability to do it. To say that because they increased the sim limits or the limits to the prims, that they embrace this, I think it's a very cop-out argument. I don't think that Linden Lab embraced the fact that you can use them as regular sims. There was nothing in the language that changed that said use this as your mall, because architecturally those sims cannot withstand the same sort of performance a regular one core of a sim can, a class 5 sim can. If they did something to the architecture of each open space sim, that's a very different argument, but that never happened. So, I as much as for the people who are suffering from the price increase, while I do hear some of the arguments, a part of me says, well, I'm not quite sure I agree with that because it doesn't